To get answers to questions about publishing or thinking about writing your own book, well, then this is a show for you. Hi, everybody. My name is Tonya Duncan Ellis, and I'm author of the Sophie Washington 12-book series for children ages 8 to 12. And I have been hosting this show for the past year, and I decided, since I'm taking a break for the summer months, just a short hiatus during the summer months, that I would have an author Q&A show to wrap up the season. And I'm going to be answering some questions that I've gotten from authors in my direct messages, and also taking questions from you who are joining. So welcome everybody that's come on. And if you have questions about publishing, things that you're doing with your books, writing, any kind of industry questions that you might have, you can put them in the comments and I'll answer them. And then I'm going to start by answering some of the questions that I've gotten. And my authority for doing so is that, as I said, I've published 12 books myself in my series. I have a 13th book coming out in June, and I've sold over 70,000 books independently through my Page Turner book publishing company. So I wanted to answer questions from those who joined in. And thank you for those who've signed in now. And I'm going to answer the first question that I got, which was very interesting. So one of the people who've messaged me asked, after your family and friends have supported your book, what are some basic next steps to getting your book noticed? Should it be Facebook ads, libraries, book tours? Is there a systemic approach? So the first thing that struck me when I read this question was they asked about after your family and friends have supported your book. And for me, when I started selling my own books, I don't go to family and friends first. And of course, it's great when they're buying your books and supporting them. But the first step I would advise any new author to take would be to find your niche. And what a niche is in a marketing term is a segment of the market that will be interested in your book. So you need to look at the themes and storylines of your book and identify segments of the population who are going to be interested in them. For example, my books are short chapter books for kids ages 8 to 12. So my target market would be the children who are the readers, but also the parents and grandparents who will be purchasing the books. So then when I'm looking at marketing to these people, I'm looking at and also my books are diverse, so I look for people who may be interested in the diversity and diverse storylines. And I look at where they hang out online, what activities they do. And my books are for that tween age range, so parents of tweens and things like that. So I target the specific group that would be buying the books, because many of my family and friends, they don't have an interest in the books that I'm selling. And I actually even have my own Facebook business page that's different from my Facebook page for family and friends, so that I can send the book marketing activities to that Facebook group and not spam family and friends with things about the books if they're interested and they join in the business side. So hopefully that will answer your question if that person tuned in. The main thing is to find your niche. Find that segment of the market that is interested in your book. That's the first place that I would start. And then there's not really one cookie cutter systemic approach to marketing to different groups. You have to identify the people who might be interested in your book, who would want to buy it, and meet them where they are, and then go after them that way or market to them that way. Okay, so the next question is, someone was asking about school visits. So they're interested in selling their books at schools, and they were asking me how to approach schools. Do I do this via email, in person, or with a school connection? So they didn't know how to get school visits. What do they need to do? And this, again, varies on your situation. So for me, my first school visit came with a personal connection, because after I had written my book, I knew a librarian who was the first reader of the first book in my series. And so she invited me to her school. And that was my first library visit. And then she actually recommended me to some of her other friends. But some good ways to get library visits, what I do now, is email schools. So I think emailing is the best way to approach librarians, because a lot of them are busy, and if they don't know you, calling them is not the best thing. A lot of them work multiple jobs in schools or have different roles or dealing with classes. So I would email them, giving information about my books, maybe provide links to other publications where your books have been. Say you had a newspaper article or press, give them information about your books and show where you've been featured or other things you've done. If you've done other school visits, maybe if you had a testimonial quote from teachers, include that. So that way they can get information about the book, and in that way I've gotten some to reach back and invite me in for school visits. Another way is that when you're participating in events, try to choose events that might be school related or have teachers and librarians attending. And I've gone to different community events where I live, and I've met librarians and teachers and talked to them, and then later they've invited me in for school visits. But the first place I would start if I had no personal connections would be to email the schools that you're interested in. And I see we've had some other people joining. And again, this is a Q&A show, and I'm just answering questions that I've gotten from authors. And if you have any questions yourself, please feel free to put them in the comments and I can answer them here. So happy to see you here. Okay, so those are that. And that's something that just struck me as I'm answering these questions, is that really there's no magic wand or perfect cookie cutter way to market. It all kind of depends on the themes of your book and what your books are about. So, and even with measuring marketing, it's not easy to always measure the success. I can look at, when I do different things, I'll see if I have more book sales afterwards. But that's something you got to try different things too. Now, another question I got was how to do a book tour. Should you do it locally or online? And that just depends on what your preference is. So I've never really done a true book tour. I've done blog tours online, and what you can do is you can pay different companies. There's some that offer blog tours, and they feature your book on their blogs over a week or a couple weeks. And now I did that maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So a lot of those aren't as popular anymore because people aren't reading the blogs as much. There's also tours with bookstagrammers on Instagram. So you could pay different bookstagrammers who do book reviews on Instagram and get them to feature your book and make your own blog tour or book tour that way. So that's a good way to reach readers. And again, this all goes back to your niche again when they were asking, should I do it live or online? Because you need to look at where are your readers for your book, the people you're trying to reach. Are they mostly online or are they in person? And then if you'd like to do a live in-person book tour, then I would approach bookstores in my area. And I've never done a book tour in my area. But when I wanted my books placed in independent bookstores in my area, I'll go introduce myself. Usually they're places where I've been hanging out some and have a relationship with the owners in the store. So I would start making those connections, making contacts with the store owners, and then maybe ask about having a book signing. And some stores may have paid time. They might have holiday events with authors where you could pay to be a vendor at the store or have different programs. So you might want to check out bookstores in your area and see if you could do that with them as well. But now that things are opening up with COVID, things are dying down a little bit. You may have more in-person opportunities because I've kind of pivoted. I had been mostly online or in the community before the pandemic, and then I kind of pivoted online with a lot of my marketing since that's where everybody was. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful. And if you have, I see a lot of people on here. If you've got questions, don't be shy. you can ask those questions, and I'll be happy to answer any that I can. And so let's see. Another question, I've gotten this a couple times. Someone asked, should I get an ISBN number? And an ISBN number is, I think it's called International Standard Business Number. And I 100% agree. Yes, you need to get your own ISBN number. Amazon will provide you with a free ISBN, but that is native to the Amazon website. And so if you wanted to sell your books in a bookstore or somewhere else, you wouldn't be able to do so with that Amazon. What you need to do is to have your books stocked in bookstores. They don't want books that are native to Amazon because Amazon is their competitor. So to get books in libraries and bookstores, I have them published through a company called Ingram, and it's Ingram Spark for independent authors. So Ingram, you need to have a different book ISBN number for your book on Ingram. And so you need to buy your own. So I would recommend that you never use that free Amazon ISBN, but get the ISBN number. And this is just a tracking number for your book that identifies it. So you need to buy your own. And you can do that through a company called Bowker. The website is myidentifiers.com. And you go on there, you buy it. It costs about, I think, $100 for one, and you can get 2 or 3 for 100, or I think 10 for 150. So I'd recommend just going ahead and get 10, because if you wanted to do a coloring book or another book later, you have those. And you need to buy your own. Do not use the Amazon. Unless you're publishing a book just for, maybe it's a family book or you're not trying to sell it to other people. But if you want to really market it and get your book out there, I would recommend getting your own ISBN number. Okay, so what are tips to increase sales visibility? So there are many things that you can do to increase sales visibility. That would be basically a whole course in itself. I would say get involved in social media. I'm on Instagram a lot, but there are all the other social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. So choose the platforms that you're most comfortable on, where your ideal customer, your niche is hanging out, and follow the trends, get your content out there. That would be a good way to increase your visibility. And also participating in some community events where you live. I found that local support helped me grow my business when I had support in my community. So I highly recommend getting involved in book festivals, local festivals, school events if they have something where you can bring your book in, even school career days and things where you can get your name out. Maybe send pitch letters to local newspapers and publications in your area so that people can learn about you and learn about your book. All right, so that's another question we have. Another person asked me, do I need a Kindle version of my book? And a lot of times, as I'm a children's author, more children read the paperback or physical copy of the book, and a lot of parents want to reduce that screen time, so they offer the hardcover version of the book more likely or more often to the children than the ebook. But I do recommend that any author does produce a Kindle version just for promotional reasons, because there are a lot of websites, like there's an email or promotional list that are ebook only. And there are many of them that can get your books out. There's one called BookBub that has promotes books to millions. They have millions on their subscriber list. So if you're not offering your book in an ebook version, you're excluded from a lot of these opportunities to get it seen by different people. Even if they don't buy it as often. Sometimes people, when I've run ads in BookBub and some of these other promo sites, I see a spike in sales in my paperback books as well. So I recommend those, because even if you're not getting as many people buying and downloading your book through the ebook version, it's a good way to get it seen. And then a lot of those promotional sites are international too. So I think that helps you get a footprint in foreign countries as well, in a pretty low cost way if you get an ebook and do some ebook promos. And there's a lot of different ebook promotional sites that are online that you can just type in ebook promo and they will have sites. And it's pretty easy you can pay someone to get your, well, if you have a chapter book like me, now I don't know about picture books, maybe a little bit more involved. But for chapter books and novels, it's pretty simple to format them yourself and upload them to Kindle. And I've done that with my latest book. I paid someone to do it, but most of them I've done myself, so it's not difficult. And if I can do it, definitely anyone else can do it. And again, I see these people here, but I don't have any questions from you. So if you have questions, please post them here. How do you find these responses? Have they been helpful to you? Let me know. Are there any type questions that you have or topics that are of interest to you? Please put them in the comments. So far, I don't have any comments. I see people on here. Okay, so that was the question about getting the Kindle version of the book. Now, another question I had here is, should I recover the book? So it says, so this person they self-published a book and then they weren't happy with their cover. At first they published it, but then when it was out a while, they didn't like the cover. So yes, I do recommend that you recover the book, because the saying, you can't judge a book by its cover, is not true when it comes to selling books. People do judge a book by the cover. I know I go into a bookstore and I love looking at the beautiful covers. That's why I like to buy. I have a problem with shopping and buying books, but a lot of times I'm drawn to the pretty covers. And people do look at those covers, and that influences their buying choice. So to give your book the best chance of success, I would highly recommend you recover it. If it's been out a while, the sales aren't what you wanted, and you want to give it the best chance. And actually, I recovered one of my books. Excuse me, let me get moving here. I'm getting some water because I'm coughing. I actually recovered one of my books in the beginning because two of the books in my series I recovered. I wasn't happy with them. This was before I started really marketing them, and I saw sales just skyrocket after I recovered. So I recommend that you do that if you're seeing with a self-published book that things aren't doing well. And sometimes people even recover books just to get them fresh. And you can see that even with traditionally published books. Some of our favorites from childhood, they have different iterations and changes on the cover. So that's something that's standard in the book industry, actually. So I highly recommend it. I see a couple other people have joined. Thank you for coming on for Write This, the Q&A segment, where I am answering questions from authors that I've gotten in my direct messages about publishing. And they've asked for suggestions on things to do with their books. And if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and I'll answer them. I'm not used to doing all this talking on the show because I normally have a guest. I brought water for my lunch because I'm having a coughing fit. Okay, so let me go on to the next question. So that was a question about recovering the book. Okay, so this one comes from, I guess I post statistics showing different trends in the publishing industry as regards to diversity. So this one, and I had put this year and last year, I've shown statistics showing the number of BIPOC people who are, that means Black, Indigenous, and people of color, who are included in numbers in the traditional publishing industry. So these little graphs that I posted showed the number of books that are written by different minority groups in the statistics when you looked at traditionally published books. So someone was asking me how many BIPOC people query agents, because I was saying that a lot of them are not included. There was, I think, 9% of traditionally published books last year that featured Black characters were focused or highlighted Black characters. I think there were 15% that had Hispanic characters. So there are different numbers. Now, there aren't any numbers that I know that show how many query the traditionally published industry. So that's a good question. It's one that I think a lot of people may not be familiar with the process and what to do to query or even get involved in the traditional industry. And that's why they may go the self-publishing route. And that's, for myself, I know that was the case because I did not, when I wrote my first book, I didn't know about any of the author groups that were out there. I kind of just said, I'm going to write a book and I want to do this. So I went on and learned about self-publishing and self-published it. So the education for BIPOC authors on the process, I think, might increase some of the numbers of people who are querying. And I got an agent, it was last year, late last year, and I'm going through the traditional publishing process. So I plan on sharing a lot of the things that I've learned on my page with others to give them insight into things that they can do to get an agent and get books traditionally published as well. And some of it you have to keep secret. I have news of some things that I can't share now that I have to share later as things go in process. But that's a good question, how many BIPOC people query agents, because I suspect a lot don't. I do hear about some who did query many agents. They were rejected and they went on and self-published their books and were successful because they didn't want to be hemmed up by the process. So anyway, that's a very interesting question. And I keep repeating this, I see other people joining. If you have questions about publishing, please put them in the comments. This is a time for us to ask questions, and I'm sure if you have a question, others will have that same question as well. And then let's see. So another question I have here is how to find events to market my books at. That's what this is saying here. So how do you find events to market your books in your area? And I guess I live in the Houston area, so it's a bigger metro area. So we have a lot of different things going on in the community. And I found just simple Google searches is the best way for me. But I have, especially in the holiday season, we have a lot of holiday markets in my area. So I recommend, if you can, to participate in those markets. They're pretty low cost to get a table. And I found those are great ways to get community support for my books, sell a lot of books since people are buying holiday gifts. The books make great holiday gifts. And also to meet teachers and librarians and people who might take my books back to their schools since they're children's books. So yeah, I've done that. Now, another thing that I've done is I've approached small businesses in my area. One bakery came to me before the pandemic and they wanted to partner with me. So I guess they had seen me out and about, and I partnered with them, and that was really fun. We had events at the bakery. They offered cakes or like mini cupcakes or something for people to come in, and it drew people in. So those are good ways to get your book out. And I recommend that authors, there's a lot of great book festivals, but I also recommend that you go to non-bookish events like the church festivals, farmers market. I used to live at a farmers market in my area. I was there every week. And it usually, with you being the only book there, you can get in a lot of sales, get interest, because especially since I'm a children's book author, people bring their kids and they want something for them to take away. They're at the market buying their groceries or their vegetables, so the kid gets a book and everybody's happy. So, but I've sold at times more books at these non-book events than I have at bookish events. So that's been good. Okay, so let's see. Any other questions? No one's asked me any questions. I see so many people here, but they don't ask any questions. But anyway, I'll continue on with this list here. Okay, so this person's asking, should I go to conferences? Absolutely, you should participate in conferences. I found going to book festivals and conferences, even though I just said selling books, if you're trying to move and sell books, going to non-bookish events can at times be good because you're the only book there. But for the networking and connections, I have found book conferences to be invaluable for me. Before the pandemic, again, now things are opening up, so some of these opportunities are coming back because a lot of them shut down. But I found that when I would go to, and I live in Texas, so I would go to the Texas Book Festival. And so I got people in the book industry seeing my books, librarians, teachers, people who have helped me along in my path. And I've also met other authors who have helped me on my journey, networked with them when I attended these events. So I recommend those for everyone. And I think any author, if you can afford to go, those are great. And then even for the information, some of the virtual conferences that have taken place during the pandemic offer different webinar or seminars and things where you're learning about your writing craft, learning about different things that can help improve your work and help make you a better author. So I recommend trying to do as many of these as possible just for your own education as an author. So those are some of the questions I have. Usually I keep the shows to about a half an hour. And I hope that these questions and the responses are helpful to you and will help you as you continue along your journey. And I'll keep sharing information as I get it about the traditional publishing process as I'm going through these steps myself to find homes for some of my works. And I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Write This. And I will be back after the summer months with some new episodes and some fun interviews. And until then, have a great summer season, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.